All right. Welcome everybody. My name is Michaela Frank. I am here as the program manager for ESTA for the Trade Association, and joining me is Rebekah Bryant from EventPipe.
Hello, hello.
Yes, ooh, they are our event housing sponsor this year, last year too.
Mhm.
So, would you like to introduce yourself,
Yeah,
Rebekah?
absolutely. Well, Mickey, thanks so much for having me today and EventPipe. We are proud to be partnered with ESTA and talk today a little bit about event housing. So, I am the Director of Business Development with EventPipe, and my experience specifically is in hotels. So, I come back and have worked for multiple brands: Drury Hotels, Hilton Hotels, Marriott, Choice, as property sales all the way up to national sales representatives. My role at EventPipe includes educating about housing and its benefits so that everyone can know what resources are really available to them, how they can use those resources to make data driven business decisions, but then also maximize the revenue streams that exist around the housing space. I graduated from Colorado State University with a bachelor's in hospitality management, but truly delighted to be here today. In addition to knowing the hotel business, I played rugby for over 10 years and I supported the travel and hotel arrangements for my team for over 3 seasons. So, really learned the importance of arranging travel when it comes to specific competitions. It's really through the lenses of arranging travel, traveling myself, but then also working in the hotel industry that I really decided, okay, I can be an expert in this space of event housing and really want to leverage that here with our group so that we can continue to support the industry, support the esports events and competitions, and learn how to make housing a part of the overall experience of each attendee. I live in
Awesome.
I live in Colorado Springs. I have 2 dogs, 2 girls, and we love to hike, and we love to be outside gardening and camping, so we're pretty outdoorsy family.
Awesome. Yeah. I lived in Denver for a while and I visited Colorado Springs a lot. It's a really nice city. So I do miss it a lot.
You ever there's a lot going on out here, but it's also a great space to when you think about the gaming environment,
hmm
as you really get the best of both worlds. You can be gaming and then go outside and hang out and lots of bars, restaurants in Colorado.
Oh, we have a question. What are your dog's name?
So Mike, thanks for the question. So my dogs' names are Rusty and Tank. I did not name them. Uh, they definitely are very codependent and attached. So they're right down here sleeping as we kind of talk about event housing today.
Awesome. Yes. So can you tell us a little bit more about EventPipe and what they do? I know that I know, how what you guys do for us, but I think a lot of people out there, don't really, understand the difference between like, what a event housing versus like, event housing platform. So if
Yeah.
you can give a little intro on that.
So EventPipe is a housing software company, and we are created just for that, event housing. So what I like to say is that we allow travel arrangers to have a platform that they can use to manage and monetize their group hotel bookings. So I always think of it as a goods and services dynamic. You have a physical, tangible good that you can present to a marketplace, and that's what we have is a software that really makes it easy for housing companies, event organizers, event planners to monetize, manage their hotel bookings. And then the services side would be as the user of our software. So we are proud to be a sponsor with ESTA as their housing software. And that allows any person in this space really to be that travel arranger, whether they define themselves as a housing company, an event organizer, an event planner. So EventPipe was founded in 2019. And since its inception, we've helped our customers generate over $820 million in hotel bookings. So if you think of us, the life cycle of an event housing organization, and our software is how it gets done. And you can go, Mickey, to the next slide. That's perfect. So a little bit about what our software has the functionality to do, or called the life cycle. It all lives in a suite of features within our software. So thinking about that attendee experience, you need to go to market and have an RFP, a request for proposal. You need to then go and contract with those various housing or hotel organizations to secure your room block. You then have to strategize and manage it. You have to ensure that you're having that customized booking experience for each traveler, so they're making a great reservation at a great hotel that you vetted and trusted. And then we talk about the hotel integrations. How do we make sure that our hotel users have a great experience inside our software? Because at the end of the day, they have to be also a member and user. And then also thinking about kind of at the end, how are we collecting all of the data? How are we doing the reconciliation? What are all the reports available about the data of our attendees so that we can make better business decisions in the future? So EventPipe really is the software in which an organization can maximize their housing.
That is awesome. I mean, yes, as someone who's done quite a few events here and there, and I think when an event, like a tournament that we've put on, as it grow, right, we need to block out more rooms, and we've been struggling on, like, what is it, trying to like estimate how much room we need.
Mhm.
So, as someone who's done this for a while, do you have any advice for people, from that standpoint?
Yeah, I think when you think about arranging housing specific to events that you're helping produce or facilitating or supporting, housing really has to be a part of the initial planning phase. So
Hmm.
we think about, what do you not know about your attendees, and how can we figure out what we need to know? Because at the end of the day, everybody has to sleep.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I always say that you always hear about a bad night's sleep, but how often do we hear about a great night's sleep? So what are we doing to ensure that a great night's sleep is happening for all of your attendees? Because we all know the consequences of a awful night's sleep. And so
Definitely.
you have to be intentional,
Hmm.
because it is such a large component of the overall attendee experience.
Yeah, that is awesome. All right.
I would have
uh,
never thought, right? Like, you have a bad hair day when you have a great hair day. It's the same mindset. What are we going to do to be intentional and maximize what's in front of us?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. Like, what is
Yeah.
it? If you think about like competition, right? Esport is all about like competition, and if you don't have a good night's sleep, you can't be your best when you're competing. So,
Oh.
yeah. All right. Let's see.
So a little bit about, when we think about the event environment, I think about that, like the total addressable market, and
Mhm.
what does EventPipe do? So I brought this to the audience today because really, when we think about event planning, it's not just the esports environment, but we look at it from an entire lens of, what are the various pieces to the puzzle that equal the total marketplace. So esports plays a critical role in that, and we know that they're one piece. But at the end of the day, we want to help level up housing for all of the event marketplace. So, you're looking at your youth sports, college associations. You can go even larger, take esports in there, various trade groups like ESTA, wedding planners. You can take that even larger to companies, offsites, religious organizations, group organizations and trips. So there's really so many pieces to events, and our housing can support, multiple different segments inside. Um,
Mhm.
when you and some of the fundamentals of event planning around housing are cross-functional between these various segments.
Okay. Let's
So,
see.
it's great to know, okay, well, what is the market? Like, define it with descriptions, but it's also probably more important to define around money, right?
Oh
Time,
yeah.
money. So, when we take and identify, okay, what's our opportunity, we really say that the United States has $169 billion being spent around events, with 1.3 of those being specific to hotel room nights or room nights and accommodations. And then we break that down into our core market. We really feel that there's that 48 billion is in the sports space, the conferences, the conventions. So our focus is really on not just event lodging, but sports, conferences, convention lodging.
Mhm.
And so when you think about all that encompasses esports, you know,
Mhm.
how can we make sure that we're maximizing the growth of this number in the total economic space domestically or internationally? These are just domestic numbers.
Mhm.
So it's a good pulse to say, okay, wow, that's a big number, and I play a critical role in maintaining it and growing it as an event organizer.
Awesome. Is there, from your experience, right? Doing like all types of like events and whatnot, is there a difference between, let's say, like a sports convention, like a sports event, like housing wise, versus like a conference or like a convention?
Yeah, I would say there is, because you're going to have what I call your attendee personas are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So typically you have, depending upon what the nature of your event is, you're going to have attendees,
Yeah.
generic, right? And then how can you define them to one next level? So, in a conference, you might have your, general admission attendees versus your vendors.
Yeah.
In a competition, you're going to have your athletes versus your fans. Well, don't forget who's going to run the tournament. So you still have your on-site staff and logistics team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've hired a staffing company to run security. Are you bringing those individuals in? Well, gosh, you need them to have a great night's sleep because they're critical to the success of the event. Then you think about if you've embraced a local volunteer base. Are you really bringing them local, or do you want them to show up at 6 a.m. and therefore you're going to put them up in a hotel room 3 blocks from their house, because
Mm-hmm.
they're also a critical asset to the success of your event. So the difference would be, in my opinion, the definition or the personas that each event producer provides to their attendees. And then how do we understand what their needs are so we can address them accordingly for housing?
Okay. So can you go a little bit deeper into that? So like you have different personas, right? Or
Mhm.
like different like groups of people that need a place to stay. How would you address the differences of like each needs, but from like, staff, staff, local attendees, out of state attendees, out of country attendees, to organizers and things like that. So how would you address that part of it?
Yeah, and I think you almost have to work your way a little bit backwards when we think
Mhm.
about that, because you wanna look at it from your facility. Like, for example, what if I'm having a large tournament, what is the capacity of my facility first? To say,
Mhm.
"Okay, how many screens, how many leagues, how many teams?" And then what do I need to maximize and run that organization, um, run kind of a successful in a beehive is the way I think of it. So, if we are trying to sell out a venue, what do we need? What's the capacity of that venue, and work our way backwards? So um, I think of it also like with all of the technology requirements that esports needs to run an in-person tournament with competition happening on site.
Mhm.
we really have to work our way into those personas
Mhm.
and looking at the assessment. So I can't really say like A equals B equals C because each piece will truly be unique. I
Yeah.
think that and I'm not I think about it in a different kind of some standards. I think about it in 5 or 6 different attendee personas. You have your general attendees, your kind of
Yeah.
your fans, your observers, your participators, you have your athletes,
Mhm.
those who are participating in the competition. Then you're going to have your staff that are running the event, the operators on site.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we always want to create opportunities for sponsorships, activations, vendors. So you could take sponsors, vendors, and lump them together, separate them. And then you have your volunteers, because
Yeah.
typically those are going to be kind of either local or so those would be the generic kind of personas that I would say are important to each event, and that you have to think about what are their individual needs and what housing can we provide for them so that the event is truly hitting max capacity and max activation.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking back through like a lot of the events that I have not only like, facilitated, but also been through,
Mhm.
but arranging, like making sure everybody, has a place to sleep at night
Yeah.
before and after the event, before, during, and after event has always been definitely a challenge because I think a lot of organizers, I don't think they truly like what is it just think about like how much housing they would need because again like you said we have like so many different one like volunteers who comes over and to help like facilitate sometime they come from out of state even to the staff, right? And
Mhm.
contracted staff too, so we have people who come over and do set up like computers, do networking,
Mhm.
all that stuff, event organizer, tournament organizers, um and things like that. And then um and then there's also like the competitors, right? To come in, we have sponsors, we have vendors, we have so all of them usually need a place to stay. And I think every event so far, I think housing capacity is always max because you have to what is it, attendees with most of the housing I think is reserved for like what is it, the event staff, right?
Mhm.
All of that. And then what is it, I think attendees usually don't have gets whatever is left. So how do we balance that so that like what is it, attendees will also have like a good choice of like
Yeah.
rooms.
So it's definitely one piece that we have to think about, right?
Hmm.
We have to think from what's the capacity of our venue, what are our
Hmm.
goals and what are we trying to achieve, and then define, okay, what are the personas and what are those behaviors? Because I need staff to be there. So ultimately, like if they don't show up, if the tech guys don't install everything correctly,
Yeah.
I can't function to perform to the expectations of the attendees or conduct the competition. So I think the next piece is prioritizing your housing, but also
Hmm.
looking at behavioral opportunities or kind of how is your audience of each persona gonna make their hotel reservations. So if
Mm, okay.
you're supporting your staff and you're making your own reservations for the staff, so you have somebody coordinating that, really that's inside your control. So
Yeah.
strategically, you can set aside housing just for that. Okay, at this hotel, if I've negotiated this much hotel inventory or these many hotel rooms, I can set aside X number for each persona. The biggest piece we look at is that attendee persona. So how do we create behavior that is conducive to what we want? Because ultimately when you think back on hosting an in-person event, it's all about the data, right? Like
Yes.
what is the one thing that we need? Data, because there is technology that exists now to help collect
Hmm.
the data, those organizations that are wanting your business to come to their destination are going to quantify the viability of your event around the data. How
Hmm.
far do your travelers come from? How many international countries? Like, how do we collect the appropriate data on the attendee persona to then make some assumed behavioral decisions about impacting their housing decisions. So, for example, if we knew that our attendees traditionally did not make reservations in advance, then it really wouldn't behoove us to go out and make all these hotel room blocks for attendees because they're not gonna like behavior, want and need are not the same. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I think that that's the piece where how do we leverage technology? How do we
Mhm.
collect the data, even if we're collecting it in kind of waves or in implementations to then be able to have a better understanding of the information of our behavior, traveler behavior.
Yeah.
So inside our technology, we have the functionality for staff rooms, we have the functionality for attendee only rooms. So it's about how do you incentivize behavior? So is it
Mhm.
that we push on price? Is it
Okay.
that we get discounted room blocks and we say, make your reservation by blank to take advantage of this discount? Is it that if you make a hotel reservation and provide your confirmation, we get a discount off of entrance into the competition? How do we, if you reserve at this hotel by this date, breakfast is included? How do we create either a motivation or a consequence? How do we create that FOMO, I call it? Lean into the psychology of our environment today to drive traveler behavior in the direction that you want, and making sure that you have all the pieces set up so that when they get to their destination of making a hotel reservation on the customized booking site, how do we offer them the type of hotel, the room type that they want? And so it's really all about leveraging that data and how
Yeah.
do we use technology to collect it. Because if you can take that information and present to the destination and say, my tournament, my competition produced this many room nights, and I have tangible data to back it up,
Mhm.
there's so much more you can achieve in the space, whether it be, depending upon how the destination is incentivized to keep your event there, or if you do move it around intentionally, how do you take it to the next destination and maximize what they can offer to you with your data?
Definitely. Yeah, I think data is probably one of the most important thing, and I think one of the most important tool, and I think one of the most important asset to have, nowadays, especially. Um, so, uh, so from your experience, and you've shown that you know a lot. So what do event organizer not know about event housing, and they probably should, What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what do you not like realistically, it's that you can and have every not every right, but like should be collecting the data about your attendees.
Mhm.
Not
Okay.
in a creepy way, but in a I'm going to enhance your experience kind of way. So a great example would be is that, I really enjoy hotels that are really oriented to my families and dog friendly.
Yeah.
So I know that, when I'm log in and I've set up my user profile for my brands or I'm looking on various travel websites, like I'm always clicking dog friendly. Well, all of a sudden now that dog friendly button is auto clicked. Well, that's great. I'm going back to that website every single time because they know what I want. And
Mhm.
I'm going to want to give my business to organizations who acknowledge what I want, make business decisions about what's important to me as the consumer. So I think the other piece that I think people think about is that we don't know or we should know is that you can actually not only collect the data, but in the housing space, you can use it as a revenue stream. And that's
Okay.
where software will help you execute making yourself or your organization or your event more money around housing specific.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So when we think about event housing, we think about there are several different ways that you can go about and secure your hotels.
Mhm.
And if we take a step back and we think about travel agents, right? Before there really was all of these individual websites where you can make individual hotel reservations or even book travel packages. If you wanted to go on a cruise or you wanted to do a trip in Europe, you would go to a travel agency. They would look in their database and help book you a trip. And they would typically take a little bit of a cut on that expense of the trip. And
Okay.
if you take that concept and you apply it to housing, in today's age, you can apply that cut per se to the overall event. How you collect that cut or where it comes from and who pays for it is a conversation that we can have when you think about what are the advantages of technology. Because we
Mhm.
all know that when you go into a business relationship, to ensure that it's mutually beneficial, two parties have to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go up to a hotel and say, "Hi, I need a room block for staff, for volunteers, and for attendees." Oh, but I can't guarantee any revenue to you. They're going to come back and say, "Well, I can't guarantee any revenue to you either." So
Yeah.
how do we create skin in the game? And that's where we can look at, okay, we're going to charge deposits to
Mhm.
the guests to help guarantee some of that revenue back to the hotel. Or you cancel last minute. Well, maybe there's some cancellation charges associated with your reservation because as an event organizer, I've lost revenue or I have to pay to my hotel money because you chose not to show up. You've committed, but then backed out. So I think that's where we talk about monetizing housing. And there's, are we really in it to do a little bit of coverage,
Mhm.
create skin in the game as the event producer? And then do we look at it in a revenue generation? Okay, we're going to cover our losses, manage our and mitigate our risk, and then oh, did we come out ahead on the end?
Yeah.
Not every time does it happen, but it can if you strategize it with intentionality.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's definitely something to think about. So how does like an event platform like yours, like EventPipe, right?
Mhm.
How can tournament organizers or event organizers, right, maximize the what is it, what you guys do, and to help them?
Yeah. So it's really going to depend on their approach to housing. So we have to think about it in terms of what are your goals and what are your capacity. So some event organizers really might say, you know what, I don't have the capacity because event housing can be really one of the most complicated pieces of
Hmm.
of producing an event. And so there are some organizations say, you know what, I don't ever want to touch it. So I'm gonna outsource that to a third party, and I'm gonna let them facilitate the conversation. Uh,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that I'm completely away from it because you're still as an event organizer, you wanna be aware of what's going on. You wanna
Hmm.
have access into your data. You wanna know what's your pickup, how's your trending. You still need to you can't just, like, set it and forget it, but you can
Yeah.
set it and then, like, check in on it from time to time.
Yeah.
If an event organizer wants to go a different way and their housing approach is very hands-on, they themselves can then use the software as the main user to say, I want to go out and facilitate hotel contracts and I want to manage room blocks and all of that. So there's really when we think about this audience of tournament operators and event producers, you have to ask yourselves, what can I absorb? Or is that something I need to really delegate out because that's not my expertise? And so
Okay.
there's various services in the marketplace to support. And then how do those services execute with the goods or the software? And that's where EventPipe comes into play. We are the software in which organizers, travel arrangers, housing companies, travel agents use to manage hotel room blocks.
Okay. Okay. So
I know, it's like you wouldn't think you'd wake up and you'd be like, "Oh, that's how it works." The light bulb goes off and you're like, "Oh, that's how it works."
yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
there is a lot to it, and usually, like, it's not and then I've said this before, like, this is not something like a lot of people think about, especially when they run a tournament, or like, I think like a lot of like different events organizers, like, if you do that a lot, like, conferences, weddings, and things like that, I think that, that is something they think about, and I think that is something that
Mhm.
um they add to, like, their planning. But I think when it comes to, like, tournaments and esports and things like that, I think because, like, we're still so new to the whole, like, industry, like, the event parts of it. That's not something that, like, that a lot of, like, we do. I mean, I think bigger's events like DreamHack, PAX and all those stuff, I think they do, and I think they actually do an okay job at it. But when it comes to, you take that down a little bit more locally, like, it's not. And so I think that, like, what is it, it's interesting. And when I, personally have, dealt with it, like, I was like, oh wow, there is so much more that I have to think about now. There is They're like, okay, so, like, I have all these people, they will need rooms, but I have all of these other people, like, they will need room. I don't know when they're gonna book it. I don't know, like, but I want them to be able to have what they're looking for. You know, so there's so much to think about, and I think, what is it, finding a way to, I guess, make it a little I want to say simpler, but it's not simple.
No, it's not simple, but simple or more like ease of use, right?
Yeah.
So that's where leveraging technology to streamline
Mhm.
that process and then leaning into the efficiencies and benefits that come with
Mhm.
the technology or kind of thinking about uh, all overall, right? Because yes, oh, I'm planning an event. Oh, where's everybody going to sleep? Well, now let's flip it on its head and say, I want people to come in and I want people to have an experience. I want them to attend
Yeah.
in person. So, their attendee experience might start the minute they leave their house traveling to your event. You
Yeah.
might define attendee experience being the minute that they check into the hotel or the minute that they register for the event, and how do we create all of those pieces
Mhm.
into that ease of use for the enhancing attendee experience. How, and this is what I always say, how do we get the attendee thinking about the destination before they
Mhm.
even get to the destination? Okay, I want to eat at this restaurant because it's local, or this hike when I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything. Oh, this hotel has a pool, so I'm gonna bring my swimsuit. So that's where our technology can come into play, because not only can the event organizer, the travel arranger, the housing company use the technology to create ease of use, but even
Mhm.
there's other ways to collect other data. So, for example, in our customized booking website, so when you go to your event landing page, if you're coming to the esports next in July, you'll see that if you need to pre-order your jersey, well, you can actually do that right in the hotel reservation making process, because we understand that there are pieces that can enhance your experience as an attendee. So let's collaborate and let's make sure that they all jive together so that you're not going here to go there on the internet, because it is so easy to get lost. When
Definitely.
you're making a hotel reservation, you don't need to shop around. Trust me as the host, I'm going to
Mhm.
find you the best hotels based on what I know your behavior to be.
That's awesome. So, let's say, what are some benefits, like, what are some things that, like, you can take off, like, an event organizer plate, when it comes to housing? Because I know that, like, between, like, ESTA and EventPipe, we've talked about, like, how much more can we add to the the hotel booking page, right?
Yeah.
So as of right now, what are some things that, like, we can actually, incorporate, alongside, a hotel booking page, a registration page, so that, like, that process is streamlined, that process is easier for the attendees.
So within our technology or within the booking experience, we do have the ability to communicate specific information when you if you depending upon how you work your workflow, hotel registration, then event registration, then add-ons, sponsorships, VIP experience. It just depends on what you see as the ultimate vision of your event.
Mhm.
But when we look at it from that housing lens, when the individual goes on our site, you can customize the messaging that's given out to them. So if you need to explain to them that it is a, let's pretend it's a clear bag facility, which I learned the other day that I wish I would have known. But let's say you need to remind everyone everywhere that it's a clear bag facility, so don't bring in a backpack full that we can't see through. You can
Mhm.
take those unique nuances and let them know that at time, or, if you wanted to communicate anything like that, there's free fields. The other piece you can take off your plate that is we can help collect, is it an athlete? Is this a
Mhm.
person in the competition? Okay, what is the league, the club, the chapter, the ESTA chapter that you're a member of, and help us collect that data so that you can then take action on that information. So when I say we collect it, it's because there's a field that exists to collect the data. So it's
Yeah.
not that we are doing anything, because it's the portal, the software in which action can be taken. We then think about payments, as far as if you did want to put a deposit down on the hotel. Well, we have payment services within the technology. So when an individual makes a hotel reservation and then you need to charge them a $50 deposit because
Yeah.
you need to make sure they're committed to attending the event, we have the functionality to accomplish that.
Okay.
Then you go to the very end of the event, and we have the functionality to collect all the reporting. How did the event produce? How many room nights did each hotel? So those are pieces that can take off of the event producer because of the workflow still has to be done, but if you can do it more efficiently and streamline it, like it makes it less of a burden.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the number one rule, with like any website traffic is like, if you can keep them on the page, on the, that specific page or that specific site as much as possible, they're less likely to go elsewhere. So, the more things I think we can put on, like, that page, I think is definitely better. It increases the chance of like, them not going somewhere else.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's see, we have about 10 minutes left, 9, 10 minutes left. So what are some I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. So what are some cool, like, trends or cool things that you're seeing, within the housing space, um that are, in the future,
Yeah.
that are popping up?
In the housing space would be is kind of everything we everything we discussed today is, like you said, how do we get the experience of the
Hmm.
attendee to really begin in their mind, the minute that they've decided I want to go to this event. Um, so how do so that would be kind of the trend is thinking instead of defining attendee experiences. I come to the event, I leave the event. Now we're elongating that timeline.
Mm.
So in elongating the timeline, how are we exposing the attendees in different personas with different messaging, ways to enhance their experience, whether it's I've mentally made the decision to attend this event, so now I'm going to go work on my attendee registration. Okay, now I've registered. I need to the next piece would be is I'm going to work through how do I auto redirect them to make a hotel reservation. Okay,
Okay.
at the hotel reservation space, how can I expose them to add-ons? How can I make sure that they know what other pieces are coming? Oh, you want to be a part of a VIP? Oh, we have a tailgating experience. You can't make a shopping cart where they can register buy. That doesn't. We're not there yet, but it's sure coming. So the trend I would say is thinking about elongating the attendee experience as a whole and knowing that you want to intentionally influence each data point or each event experience
Hmm.
to grow and create that loyalty year over year with either your repeat attendees or your actual attendee growth.
Okay. All right. So let's is it possible so how do we utilize, a platform like EventPipe to, like, maybe individualize, like, the different like attendee personas? Because,
Yeah.
like you said, the every event is different. And every event has like different like personas that of like attendees,
Yeah.
from like the business, you know,
So
uh
the cool part about our technology is that, we talk about individual reservations, but you
mhm,
also can break the reservation process down with group blocks or sub blocks. So
okay.
if you are at a large convention hotel and you've reserved or you facilitated the arrangement of 100 rooms,
Mhm.
you know that you want 25 for them, 25 for them, you can customize those that with sub blocks so
Okay.
that each subgroup gets a different experience
Ooh.
for their reservation process. So and the nice piece is that you can do that even when I think about the scholastic level. So
Mhm.
typically schools need to all stay together if they're traveling for a state competition. They themselves can actually go in and say, okay, I have 7 athletes. I need 7 different rooms, plus a chaperone, plus a bus driver. Oh, we need security. So now I need 10 rooms, but I don't know who's sleeping in every room. They can also go out and make their own sub block
Mhm.
for their particular group. So you have really two functionalities to creating custom experiences depending upon attendee persona through the technology.
Oh, yeah, that is always cool, because I think people like things that are like individualized, like personalized, like, to them.
Yeah.
They don't want to like, be all grouped up in a giant, in a
No.
giant box, they all want like their own little thing. So I think, the more we can actually individualize their experience, I think that is definitely something they can good to have. All right. So let's see. I'm gonna open up for questions if anybody have any questions. And while you guys are thinking about your questions, so what advice do you have for, any event organizers, whether it's esports or like, otherwise, for
Yeah.
them to what is it, when planning events and when thinking about like, housings and all of those things?
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice is really incorporate housing into the front side of your planning. So, really being intentional, that's going to be really important. So, when we think about that checklist of as you're running your event,
Hmm.
where is housing? Is it on the list? If it's not on the list, let's put it on the list and then let's work through what does it even mean? Right? Housing sounds great, but there's so much more to it. So how do we push forward? Um, so that's my biggest piece of advice, and that's where if you don't know what it means, let's have a conversation because that's really what my goal is I really want to educate our community so that everybody feels confident that when I'm planning an event and I'm planning housing around my event, I'm ready and I'm equipped with the right questions to ask my hotels. I'm equipped with the right data to present to my destination so that I can make sure the event is successful and viable year over year, or just a repeatable event.
Yeah. Okay. So what should they be looking for, or like thinking about, when they're thinking about housings? When so like say, that the plan an event and and then they're like, okay, I need housings. What are some like maybe like basic like, uh steps or like things they should think about when they come up coming to like, either an event housing agency or like a platform like yours, like what should they have ready?
So, so click the mute button. When we think about planning for housing, we definitely want to think about it in the before we approach an agency or a housing company to support the housing, right? First thing we need to say is like, what role do I want to play in housing? Do I want hands on, hands off? Kind of keep it simple. And then thinking through if it is hands off, what level of service do I want? Do I want full service? Even like we go to a hotel with a valet, walk up, you get out, you're there. Or do I want something that might be more a little scaled back on the service side? Because there are organizations that can give you all of the levels if you want. You think about like you've got your 5-star hotels and you've all the levels of different hotels. There's levels of housing services as well. Then I would also say we would want to put together kind of that snapshot of what is our attendee personas? What is the estimated goals we're trying to achieve? Because before we go into event planning, we need to have an ultimate goal and then breaking that down. So what is our housing goal based on our personas, our attendees, and the known behaviors that we have? And that's
Mhm.
going to help you then identify what is going to be the best solution and the best process to achieve your goals.
Okay.
Traditionally, it tends to be software oriented. Um,
Yeah.
that's how you can collect all the data that you need.
Okay. So let's say like, an event organizer, right? They haven't been collecting like, all these data, or like, maybe this is their first time and they want to be prepared. Like, how should they go about it then?
So, if this is their first time, they want to put together, I would say, kind of a statement or an kind of a things I know about housing.
Mhm.
So, you think about it from wh- who's attending, how far are they coming from, what are your goals, is it a international event, is it a regional event, is this a national championship? So thinking about what is my event and what do I hope to achieve, and then breaking down housing. So if do I want all my staff in one hotel? Do I want all my, do I want to mix my athletes because I'm going to have a signing in the hotel lobby? So I want to intermingle my attendee personas. So really putting together like the things I know, one pager for yourself.
Mhm.
How can we manage that into what do I not know so that we can make better business decisions that influence kind of the next time. So if you've never done this before, this is a great place and a great time to start. And I would say the other thing you could really do is come to the ESTA Esports Next, because we will be there and can talk you through all of it. We're not here just to set it and forget it. We really want to be partners with the organizations that see value in our software. And I always say my theme is level up. And so, enhance that attendee experience. How can we get your organization, your event to level up around housing?
Yeah, definitely. And as someone who's been working with like EventPipe, I can definitely say that like, you guys have been like amazing, like, through
Thank
everything so far. So Surface is definitely A plus. Um okay. All right. And let's see. I don't see.
Is there any questions? Anybody want to know anything? Have experience, like this one time at this one hotel, this one thing happened. How should that have gone? Typically, I get a lot of calls that are saying, well, this hotel is telling me this, but I really need them to do that. How do I work with them and be a partner and get them to do that? And what do I need to do, or how do I position myself as a relationship partnership? So if you have any hotel questions, any questions about the housing process, throw them in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. While we're waiting for that, are there any like cool, like, what is it, stories or experiences that you've had like personally that you want to share?
Oh, I mean, they always say they could write a book about your hotel experiences. I would say one of my favorite experiences was I was working at a hotel here in Colorado Springs, and we had a tour bus that had booked. It was group housing, like it was a group housing piece, so they were
Mhm.
traveling as a group, they were on a tour bus. And because we knew in advance that they were coming at the hotel had all the hotel keys ready to go. So when they walked in, the hotel was like, "Oh, you're Sue. Here you go. Like, let me check your ID. Okay, follow all our, security protocols, and here's your key." So, and really, you would think it's that simple, but in reality, it takes intentionality to make sure that you could just, "Oh, hi, Sue. This is Sue. Here's your key." It doesn't happen like that like accidentally. It's very
Yeah.
intentional. Or I love it when you walk into a hotel and they know your name, or they can just, I have no idea how they know my name, but they look and like, "My name is Bryant." I'm like, so, but it's all about that. Those would be my experiences of what can go right. And how
Mhm.
do we work through making sure that does go right,
Yeah.
you get everybody engaged and committed to the end game.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure every one of us have had, like, horror stories of, like, hotels
No,
and experiences.
I know, and that's where it's like, it's all like, I think about it as like the fishbone theory,
Mhm.
and it's like, how do you see your end game and what are the perceived obstacles or what could happen? And then how do we make sure that they are removed? So
Yeah.
a lot of times you'll see that destinations, if you're producing an event, want you to come visit the destination because they want you to really get engaged in making the event successful. So you see those, we're doing a site visit 3 months prior to the event to double
Yeah.
check that everything is correct and the way it was spoken on paper. And so planning the event is so important with the nuances and the details. And that's why there's an entire industry of planning. And then there's dedicated software just for managing the housing aspect of
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, I think that's actually something that really did surprise me, like, as I'm, like, what is it, doing tournaments and, like, doing events, and that, like, housing it. I thought it was just, trying to get, like, hotel, like, rooms, like, blocked off, but no, there are so much more to it, you're right. There's yeah, like, there are people that's what they do for a living. And there's dedicated, like, I didn't even know, until I think last summer that you can actually have a dedicated, like, web page for you and for your event or for your company, um, just for the event, so they can go in and they can, like, find out information, they can book the rooms, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a thing."
Yeah,
So
it's an entire industry about economic impact. How
mhm,
much outside revenue are you generating for the destination as the event organizer? And really, right, like that's what as when you think about where you live, how do you control tax increases on property
mhm,
tax or sales tax, right? It's because you're offsetting the income of your local jurisdiction by outside money. So
mhm,
that's where there's an entire industry about making and generating events so that they can support the local economy and
mhm.
support the local goals of the jurisdiction. Now, I've never worked for a destination, so I can only speak from my experience. I can't speak from working for a destination or a
Mhm.
jurisdiction, but conceptually, it feels true.
Yeah. No, that is true, and I think that one of the reason I really wanted, like, to bring you on and talk about stuff like this is because I do know, of a lot of, like, event, and especially within the esport industry, like, a lot of tournaments and events, and it doesn't matter how many attendees they have, from like 300 to 1,000, they are still, like, going into, like, each hotel, like, individually, to, like, what is it, manage and then, like, do housing like that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I was like, hey, you can actually work with somebody.
And and make some money and leverage,
Yeah.
how do we leverage the relationships? Just like buying power, you look at
Hmm.
going to your big warehouse companies, you get savings by buying in bulk. So how do you create a value proposition to your attendees by prearranging accommodations for
Hmm.
them? And then how do you make sure that that prearrangement is mutually beneficial for you as well as the hotel?
Hmm.
Then how do you manage it? Well, you use or who not how and who manages it. Well, who, that's up to the event producer and what did they want to see happen, but how is really through EventPipe and our software and then
Hmm.
all the and I didn't even get to go into, there's just so much more to it. Like I
Yeah,
said,
definitely.
the entire industry that really that drives everything that we do every day.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's definitely a lot more, like, details that we can, like, go into. But yeah, this is basically just, to give raise a little awareness and a little more education, and, like, that there are solution out there that, like, that can help a lot of us, do this a little bit better and then do this a little, enhancing it to for like, the people who are attending because yes, where you sleep definitely matters.
You need to have a good I used to say at the hotel, I would say, I'm not this is not rocket science, but it is really important. I sell a good night's sleep and a hot shower, and those things don't work, your day doesn't work. So let's make sure those work so your day will really be the best it can be. So, um,
Yeah, definitely.
Nikki, it's such a pleasure to be here, and EventPipe is really proud of our partnership with ESTA. We really look forward to attending the
Yeah.
Esports Next conference in July. And if you are going to be there, hit us up. Let us know what questions you have. Tell us your horror stories, or tell us the things you love about your hotel experiences. We want to make sure that everybody knows that we're here to support the industry, support this community, offer solutions and things that I had no idea I needed to know. But now you know. There you go.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think we're wrapping up. And thank you so much, Rebecca, for like being here and talking to me and like,
Absolutely.
talking to the community definitely helps. And just a few things for those out there. Please check out our event calendar for all the events and all for LinkedIn Live and panels like this one. And register, please, for the Esports Next conference. There is a Chicago street race happening that weekend, so housing will be very, very limited.
Yep, but you'll make your hotel reservation on the EventPipe
Mhm.
website. So let us know how your experience is. We hope that it's fabulous. That was our intention. Make sure that you register and then you secure your housing, and we'll be there. So plan to walk the trade show and let us know your questions. And um, thank you, Mickey, for allowing EventPipe to be a part of this community.
No, definitely. No, thank you so much for like, helping us with all of this. So like and yeah, and I've learned so much from you and then, from working with you guys a lot. So all right. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a good afternoon. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye bye.